Hello, everybody, and welcome to the next episode of the Rational Trader Podcast. JD here with my co-host Louis Navalier. We've got a great show for you this week, folks. Louis and I were just talking offline about the history of California. I don't know why or how we got on that topic, Louis. I guess it started with there's a hurricane brewing, and it'll impact the Southwest here starting this weekend.
Yep. Arizona, New Mexico gets lots of rain. Okay.
There you go. And coincidentally, my mother lives in Tucson, and I literally was long overdue to check the weather for Tucson before Louis mentioned that there's a hurricane brewing. So I'll have to tell Mom to batten down the hatches.
Exactly.
Well, she is struggling with her memory, so
Yeah.
uh, I'm going back down there the end of October to check in on her.
Good.
Yeah, yeah. Louis, it would appear that Donald Trump had his trading places moment telling the BLS to turn those darn machines back on.
Yeah, but if they were back on, they would just show job losses. We have Raphael Bostic, which is the Atlanta Fed president, one of the hawks. And one of the reasons he's a hawk, he oversees one of the strongest regions in the U.S., the Southeast,
Right.
It's, Georgia, Florida, Alabama, very Tennessee, very strong states. And he has now turned dovish, so that's a good sign when the last hawk becomes a dove. So we're going to get some rate cuts, and there's a big concern about the job market.
Now
So,
I'm from Minnesota, and we have a famous musician here named Prince, and he pondered in a famous song, "What happens when doves cry?"
yeah, I remember that. You also have Bob Dylan from
That's right. Hibbing,
up north
Minnesota.
where they mine all the iron ore.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Louis, it's a weird market. I don't know what to say about it other than the melt up continues. We get these little blips. This week we've had two, 25 basis point declining days and quickly reversing. And futures, we're recording this Friday morning. Futures are looking to recover at least half of whatever we lost yesterday.
Yeah, and probably the best near-term buys on your two sigma basis are a lot of gold stocks because they got spanked yesterday. Of course, they were very strong early in the week, but they're all screaming buys. I'm sure they'll be gapping up now.
Do you know the name I want to talk about from a mining perspective with you is a name we really pounded. You've been pounding the table on it for a while, and I noted to folks. Truly, this is a 10 bagger opportunity. This was back in July. And of course, I'm referring to Idaho Strategic trading at, I think at that time, $12 a share, and now blowing through 40 on its way to 50. And this one really had, you are so good at finding these 10 baggers, Louis. And so I kind of know just watching you over the last 30 years what that looks like. Would you agree with my assessment there that this one has 10 bagger possibilities?
Well, yeah, it's the only gold stock I recommend that also has a rare earth mineral play, and so they're taking their rare earth mineral reserves and trying to have another company mine it because that's not their expertise.
Hmm.
They have the royalty rights. So that's what makes IDR so special. The safest gold stock I recommend is King Cross. That's a KGC.
Mm-hmm.
That is a fundamental egg. Um, and, um, it's in the top 20% of my eight fundamental criteria. It's very hard to get a fundamental A. I have another fundamental A stock called eGain that just shot up, EGAN that just shot up dramatically. So when they're fundamental A's, they're really, really good. But I have 10 gold stocks now. So we got plenty of stocks just waiting for the implosion of a bunch of governments and central banks. So the gold rally was triggered by the Japanese prime minister. She's the fifth prime minister in 5 years. She wants to spend. That's going to do the Bank of Japan. So the Japanese yen has dropped 3.6% against the dollar this week. And then, of course, France is totally dysfunctional. They should have an election because they can't do anything. But Macron's going to appoint his fourth prime minister since last year. And the last one only lasted 3 weeks. And what it is in France is the prime minister negotiates the budget with Parliament, but Parliament's controlled by Marie Le Pen, who doesn't get along with Macron. So it's inevitable that France is about to implode again. And of course, Marie Le Pen, even though her party will get the majority of the vote, uh, when they have an election, cannot be president because the EU has banned her for 5 years. So her lieutenant, Jordan, is only 29 years old.
Oh,
So we
good
got a very
Lord.
young French president.
What's your take on Argentina?
Yeah, I was writing about that this morning. Yeah, we did a $20 billion currency intervention. And the question, did we get anything back? They have an $18 billion swap arrangement with China. I don't know if we asked them to undo that because China is very influential in Latin America, especially in Brazil. But if you travel around Latin America, you'll just see it's all Chinese cranes everywhere. So, um, so yeah, it's very. But Milley's a friend of Trump, and he needed some help. I think it's interesting because Scott Bessent is feared. He's the guy that made $1 billion for Soros when he bet that the British pound up to unpeg,
Hmm.
and that was one of the greatest trades in history. So I think everybody's scared of Bessent. So at least Argentina's on the right side of him at this moment.
Well, and he is in an incredibly powerful position. I mean, head of the
Oh
U.S.
yeah,
Treasury. I mean,
yeah,
that's I, I I I may be the only one that wonders about this, but that power is derived from being king dollar or much of it.
yeah. And the dollar's going to be strengthening here. The dollar just was weak because our allies don't like Trump. They don't like his style. He didn't get the Nobel Peace Prize, but the gal that got it is obviously was deserving. But the main thing is that the dollar will resurge because one, we have the strongest economy in the world. Two, we have household formation still. We have better demographics. And three, we do assimilate our immigrants. It's just Trump wants them to be legal. So we just have a better model, and our 50 states compete with each other. So this
Well,
is,
entering mainstream lexicon is this idea of debasement. And it's a trade that, there are, I'm sure, hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of individual investors that are chasing after gold without really understanding what's driving it higher. And so, if the dollar truly reasserts itself, would that be the end of the gold trade?
no, because the central banks are buying gold for credibility. And so they're one of the big buyers. You may remember the inventories of gold surged 41% in January, 25% in February. These were throwing off our trade numbers. Somebody in America was buying a lot of gold. And I don't know if it was our central banks or not, but it distorted the trade numbers, which triggered the tiny contraction in the economy in the first quarter, which no one saw because it was all trade related. And now the trade deficit's shrinking, so we're getting a lot more. And of course, the tariff revenues are extraordinary. So,
I'm going to stop you there because I don't know if it got enough coverage or not, but Treasury Secretary Bessent noted that the the receipts for the federal government are coming in strong enough to lower the deficit. And again, that to me blows up the debasement trade, in my opinion.
Yeah, yeah. No, it was wise to diversify our revenue sources. When the government collects taxes, you don't want them to spend 10 cents to collect a dollar. So
Hmm.
you have to get the money as efficiently as possible. But of course, next week's October 15th, when a lot of people will be filing their tax returns. That's the last moment. So yeah, I got a call from my accountant, and apparently I owe a lot more money than I thought. So oops.
Well, you're not alone there. But you're right. The We've talked about this. We haven't talked about it recently, but my view is it would behoove us to eliminate the IRS entirely, and this idea of paying quarterly taxes and what have you is nonsensical. In its place, you could have a much more efficient system that is based on consumption, but that's just me.
Well, they may be planning that. The head of the IRS, I think, is our new Labor Department head, because the other one that Trump wanted didn't take the job.
Oh.
They told his name. But but yeah, the head of the IRS is getting in a more important position. Now I just got to remember what it is. Sorry.
That's okay. I mean, I think clearly the administration wants to, de-emphasize the IRS as opposed to growing it. They want to shrink it.
So the other big news, of course, and it's amazing the market's up, is there's this company, First Brands, which is an auto parts supplier. Their customers are AutoZone and Napa, O'Reilly Auto Parts, Walmart, and they are in bankruptcy. And there's 2.3 billion missing. And
What's the
they
name of that company again? I'm sorry.
First Brands.
Is there do they trade publicly?
I don't know, but they were funded by private credit. And Jeffries is on the hook for 715 million. Although, I'm sure they'll get some pennies on the dollar.
Okay.
Um, UBS is on the hook for like over 170 million. Um, and this is one of the first blowups in private credit. And they got sued by the Justice Department the other day, trying to figure out if there was anything. Um, well, they're investigating to see if there is a problem.
Okay.
But, they lend money based on the equipment, and then they got to get that equipment back for collateral, and you can sell it. And but this is the first implosion in the private credit markets, and we've had some others. There was a company that traded treasuries that imploded, and that's Citigroup and JP Morgan's problem. They were unfortunately leveraged 11,000 to 1. Most of the derivatives come from French traders that NC Business School teaches that. The French are pretty kinky when it comes to investing. And so, but, the average stockbroker today sells a lot of private credit, which
Right.
pays people an 11% yield, and they're leveraging.
The fees is what they're chasing.
Well, they get a 2% upfront placement fee, and then they get up to 1% of your trail. But they're getting those 11% yields by leveraging loans. And now is the default rate looks like it's going to hit 9%. And so it's getting harder to raise money in private credit now because of this implosion. So if we do have a private credit meltdown, it's only a $3 trillion a year industry, which is only 10% of our GDP. The Fed would have to slash rates to save everybody.
Yeah, I mean, the collapse of the housing market was triggered by all of the leverage, 1,000 to 1 leverage of those derivatives that were, carving, slicing up and carving out tranches on mortgage securities. Um, it created a tangled web that was impossible. I mean, it brought down Lehman Brothers. I mean,
Yeah.
and Lehman Brothers, you know, uh, had a couple smart people working for them. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
people don't understand that the widest spreads on Wall Street are in debt. And I wrote a white paper about 2008, and I was down in Palm Beach at the time, and people were bragging that they were earning 13 to 16% a year tax free. And Wall Street had created these vehicles that would leverage munis, A-rated munis,
Mm,
which are still good munis to this day. But because they were leveraged 6 to 1 or more, um, what happened is, and I went to one of the presentations, it was Citibank one, they could leverage the bonds with the AIG credit default swaps. And when AIG failed, they were forced to sell them all at once. And it was, for lack of a better word, a flash crash in the bond market.
right.
And when you try to sell everything at once, you're essentially pushing a watermelon through a keyhole. They dropped the bids and they lost 97% of their money. And the genius that did the presentation for Citibank was Jack Lew. He was the head of alternative investments, and he lost 21.1 billion, did lose his job, and then he became our Treasury Secretary. And I just find it odd that the guy that used to scam senior citizens in South Florida with these leveraged muni products became our Treasury Secretary. So it just shows how kinky Wall Street is. And just so you know, when you bonds have about a 3% spread.
Right.
So you leverage them 6 to 1, you just got 18%.
Hmm.
So these things are just full of fees um and
Well,
you know
it's a Ponzi scheme, in
well
a way, right? I mean,
but the bonds those munis are still good to this day. It's just
right.
it was the leverage and the way they did it and the fact that they wouldn't they had to unwind them all at once. That's why I don't like mark to market accounting. When Goldman bought Silicon Valley Bank's bond portfolio on a Thursday. On Tuesday, they would have been solvent. And so, Dodd-Frank is destroying the banking industry. It's forcing mark-to-market accounting, which forces sales when there's sometimes no liquidity. It forced banks out of lending to anyone who wasn't perfect. So again, if your credit score is not above 800, you're not going to get a loan.
Hmm.
But the bank will kick you out to the private credit world if you're like 798 on your credit score, and they'll start marking up the loans
Which
for
which which is which ironically then you know what happens. Those private credit folks create securities that they sell right back to the banks.
you. Yeah, I know. It's and it's pretty corrupt. Joe Biden was backed by Capital One. I mean, Capital One fleeces poor people.
Yeah, yes, yes.
So we have a permanent underclass in America. Scott Bessent, our Treasury Secretary, pointed out that 88% of the stocks are held by the top 12%. The other 12% of stocks are held by the next 38%. And then the other 50% of Americans have debt. And those are the people we have to fix. So that's why we got to cut rates. Okay.
Okay, so let's dive into that a little bit because you point out, and I don't want to say overstating the obvious, but the gap between the haves and the have-nots, and you're out there talking to individual investors, and you know, I don't know what the stat was most recently, but I know at one point the Federal Reserve came out with a report that said 20% of folks over 50 years old don't have a dime saved for retirement.
Mhm.
So how do you truly, okay, lower interest rates, that helps their, incrementally their monthly cash flow, maybe. Um, Corporations and banks and financial companies are really good at figuring out ways to recoup whatever it is that they lose market of lower interest rates. So I guess what I'm getting at is what solutions are what can a little guy do to, become one of the 12% that holds 85% of the securities out there?
Well, they can buy our A-rated stocks. Um, we rank stocks A, B, C, D, F. And I just updated our performance, and I can tell you how that works.
And by the way, this goes back to our conversation on Idaho Strategic because back in early July, that was an A-rated stock, and I said it a moment ago, but the ability of Louis' approach to identify potential 10 baggers and owning potential 10 baggers is how you truly get ahead.
so I can send you my performance, but we've been have Stalker's been up and running since January 31 of 1998. Okay.
Okay. Yep.
And this is rebalanced monthly through the end of the third quarter,
Okay.
September 30th. And if you invested $100 in F-rated stocks, you would have $88. If you invested $100 in D-ranked stocks, you'd have $319. If you invested $100 in C-ranked stocks, you'd have $1,100. If you invested $100 in B-ranked stocks, you'd have $3,420. And if you invested $100 in A-ranked stocks, you'd have $13,226. Now, there's one other glitch. If you just bought our fundamental A stocks, rebalance monthly, your $100 would be worth $382,485.
Wow.
So I was at my publisher and I prepared these charts for my publisher.
Okay.
And because they're the stock grader gets the most traffic through my publisher. But my point is the fundamental A stocks are extraordinary. There's happen to be only 9 of them at this moment. KGC is one. This EGAN that I mentioned earlier, EGAN is another. And so when they show up, you got to buy them. And I'll send you this performance. But I'll send you the raw worksheet with some charts. But it's that's how you get rich. And another way you can do it is you can bet on a billionaire. So you can bet on I bet big time on Jensen that runs NVIDIA. I
Right.
bet on Alex Karp, okay, who runs Plantier Technologies. You know, most Americans do want to bet on a billionaire, okay? Some have bet on Mark Zuckerberg. Some have bet on Jeff Bezos or Bill Gates. And although Ballmer has more money than Bill Gates, but Ballmer used to be the president. And the main reason he owns the Clippers, but the main reason he has more money, he didn't get divorced, okay? And of course, he didn't sell the stock. But this a lot of people bet on Elon. So we are in this world where we have celebrity CEOs, and you can hitch a ride to them. But my fundamental A stocks are the best thing I have.
It's interesting, and I don't want to be Debbie Downer here, but I recall periods of or moments in history where you do have the celebrity CEO. Um, I recall in the late 1980s or throughout the 1980s, there was a guy by the name of F. Ross Johnson who ran Nabisco and RJR. If I actually he ran RJR and was the brainchild or led by his bankers to, at that time, embark upon the largest leveraged buyout merger ever conducted, utilizing junk bonds, right, that were becoming, similar to the private credit markets, right? And when what you learn is that none of these guys, these folks that you talk about, and I don't want to disagree with you, Louis, too much here, but I just want to throw it out there that these are human beings here, and I am seeing some, you know, just random behaviors within the group that are concerning to me that make it look like I don't want to call it a circle, you know what, but kind of like that, you know what I mean, where
Well,
everybody's puffing out their chest.
the new billionaire in finance is the James Street guy, and he looks like a hippie. Most people don't recognize him. He was recently seen at Burning Man. I did not see him at the Reno airport. Well, he probably flew private, but the main thing is, and he's done some controversial things. He tried to overthrow an African nation, and he was back Sam Bankman-Fried initially,
Mhm.
Um, but he's the new billionaire. He's starting to beat Ken Griffith at Citadel for market share. They're writing all the call options out there and collecting premiums,
Mhm.
and but most of the real big billionaires are tech related more than finance related. I'm trying to think who's the wealthiest finance billionaire, and it might be Abigail Johnson, who's Fidelity. I'm not sure. Uh,
Well,
no,
wouldn't you
no,
say
it's
like
actually I think Steve
Ken Griffin
Schwarzman.
and Citadel and
No. Griffith's not up there. No, Bloomberg just came out with a billionaires list. No, I think it's Steve Schwartzman of Blackstone.
Blackstone? Yes, yeah,
Yeah, and of course he's involved in private credit. And
big time.
Blackstone's funny. They got these real estate products that have a daily NAV. And don't ask me how they ever got that approved. I don't know if they got like a little Zillow hooked up to their properties. You know what I mean?
Right.
And they price it
Oh, don't
according.
get me started on real estate. I'm trying to navigate my way through Tucson market and the way real estate works is, it's I don't want to say it's a Ponzi scheme, but it's almost a greater fool, where you buy a house and then that becomes the comparable that then let's jack up the price and then that
Correct.
becomes the
Yeah,
comparable and then
yeah.
it just kind of keeps like what's the basis of this? I
Well,
mean,
we had the discussion earlier. Price per foot is legit, especially in a market like Arizona. And I know when I sold my mother's home, it was 200 to 220 a foot. You could push it to 240 if it had some extraordinary improvements, in the kitchen or someplace. But but now that should be 350 to four and a quarter. And it's funny, we have this issue in Reno. I live in a nice neighborhood. It's high in the hills. It's gated. And we all got land. But anyway, whether we know it or not, we're a $400 a foot market. Okay.
right.
So the California builders come in and they, ask 1,200 a foot, three times our rate. And there's nothing extraordinary about those homes. I mean, they're nice homes, but they're not worth 1,200 a foot. And I remember that home eventually sold for, I think, a little over 600 a foot. So I don't know what was inside it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was a new home. Maybe somebody wanted a new home. But yeah, that's how you should price real estate. It's funny in Florida where I am, uh, price per foot doesn't mean anything. It's just the dirt. So
Yeah, yeah.
our
Well, and I
attitude
and I
is,
was just in New York City, which you're familiar with, obviously,
yeah,
with your daughter being there. It blows me away. I mean, it's the value of it's not even the value of the land, it's the value of the air going up
yeah.
because it's so
I looked
densely
at getting her a
populated.
condo, and if we financed it, it would have been the equivalent of 40,000 a month. And so, yeah, we'll just let her pay 10 grand a month rent. because I
Right,
didn't want
right.
to pay 40,000 a month, and also the property taxes are hideous in New York.
Yeah, yeah.
So
And then you've got this. I wouldn't buy real estate right now with the mayor coming in. Who knows what he's going to do if he gets elected, this Mondami.
well, that's New York's problem.
Yeah, yeah.
We'll let them figure out why they what happened to commerce. As it is, you go to Palm Beach, it's New York now. So COVID really hurt a lot of the blue state economies. Okay, and it's going to be interesting, especially now that Trump's invading Illinois and all that stuff, and fighting the judges that try to keep him out, and he might be declaring the Insurrection Act soon. And I was on TV Wednesday, and I got bumped for about 20 minutes because they had the Antifa press conference they were showing. And it was really sad. It was, Pam Bondi was there with Kash Patel and Trump, but they had all these journalists that got beaten up by Antifa.
Oh Lord.
So and one gal was, showed up with her black eye and her bruises, and it was pretty graphic. And
Well, these people are anarchists. I mean, it's just
yeah, well, we had it in Reno. It's they this is before one of the presidential elections. They bust them in, and then they got out of the bus, and there was a pile of bricks there for them, and they would grab a brick, and they smashed the county courthouse, and they obliterated a bank across the street from our building. I'm on the third floor. Excuse me, I'm on the fifth floor now. I used to be on the third floor. And to throw a brick 3 to 5 floors is tough. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
it
You were safe.
so I was okay. Yeah, I forgot. That's why I was safe. I'm on the fifth floor. The federal courthouse is across from me. That's got a lot of security. So it was hard for them to get to that. Anyway, Nevada escalates very quickly. So it went from Reno police to highway patrol within 20 minutes to National Guard within 40 minutes. And so they decided to end it all by looting the Patagonia store. And
Hmm.
uh, and they were wondering why they were getting arrested. And we had to explain to them that shoplifting wasn't legal in Nevada. They didn't realize what state they were in. And of course, the California shoplifting rules have been removed. You can't shoplift in California anymore like they used to. So I found that interesting. But that was obviously funded by somebody.
Absolutely. It's
Somebody busted
organized. It's
in,
it's
somebody
organized
bailed
and
them
it's
out.
organized anarchy.
Yeah, somebody paid for the bricks.
That's
So
right.
we don't know if that was Soros or who it was.
Someone paid for the buses. Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess Trump wants to do RICO on Soros. And if you remember, Biden gave Soros a medal uh, before he left.
Yeah, it's
So,
fascinating. It sure. Let me wrap it up by turning our attention to individual stocks. You mentioned all of those A-rated stocks already, Louis. Are there any other names or sectors that folks should be watching in the
well,
coming?
again, the gold stocks are the best buys because they shot up early in the week
Right.
with the chaos in France and Japan. They really got hit really hard on Thursday. So they are definitely the best buys. Gold is up this morning and the gold stocks are gapping up. So the KGC is the best one.
And
And
from you mentioned Two Sigma, and that's simply looking at the mean price of a stock and then uh, wrapping two standard deviations around that mean. And most of those gold stocks are two standard deviations above the mean. And so even though they declined, it hasn't even brought them below the mean price. From a trading perspective, it's really tough for me personally to find an entry point the way I go about things. But if we get more selling and that debasement, some of the air out of this debasement story needs to come out. So we'll see what happens. I
oh,
know.
I'm back.
Okay. Okay.
but I have a car service, so I'm going to have to sign off. Okay.
Yeah, well, Louis, thank you as always for a great conversation. Appreciate it as always. We'll end things here. This is JD for the Rational Trader Podcast. Louis and I'll be back next week. Have a great week, everybody, and we'll see you all next time.